because no one's done it before.
Some incredible stories, some incredible companies.
Welcome to the Silicon Slopes Live. I'm here with Chris Klomp and Adam Green and Wiley Vandenacker, the former owners of Collective Medical. How are you?
We're good.
Very well, thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Great.
Former owners, but like CEO and co-founders, right?
That's right.
Yeah, just having a little fun there.
It's kind of an awkward title.
Former owners. Okay, we're going to go back, starting in the present, and do a little bit of an entrepreneurial journey between you three because you recently sold your company, got acquired. So let's start with you, Chris. Let's start now and go back kind of to the founding, what problems were being solved, and then you guys can jump in wherever you see fit, and then I have individual questions for each one of you.
Got it. So Collective Medical is the largest real-time patient care transitions and provider activation platform in the country, which probably doesn't mean a whole lot to most people, but we're connected to a little over a third of the hospitals in the country, every national health plan, tens of thousands of other providers, and we observe patients as they move from one care setting to another and pull their records together and analyze those in real time to look for patterns of risk before they come to bear. So if a patient is about to overdose or about to end up in the emergency department or about to readmit to a hospital, our software figures that out and then figures out the best provider positioned to intervene on behalf of the patient and stop it from happening. And we do this across, hundreds of millions of patient encounters in real time. So heavy mission driven, heavy mission focus, and we've been at it for a long time.
Yeah. Adam, so a third of the hospitals, that's a lot. Where did you start out?
We started in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State, in particular on the eastern side. So back in the day, when we were finishing up college, we were starting this up and talked to a hospital in Spokane, Sacred Heart Medical Center, and took about a year and a half, 2 years actually, of kind of talking and with the physicians there and the IT staff, but we were able to get them live and then just grew very organically from that point in the Pacific Northwest and kind of branched out to Oregon and then to California, West Virginia, Massachusetts, and a bunch of other places.
Awesome. So Wiley, in the early days, and then forecasting into the future now, how did you and the team kind of decide who was going to do what role, who was going to sell, who was going to build, who was going to make the company work? How did that happen?
It wasn't hard because it was just Adam and I for the first. Well, Adam and I failed miserably in 2007, and went and got separate jobs. So neither of us was doing anything at that time. Before
you
that,
played Guitar Hero with me.
Yeah, we did play a lot of Guitar Hero. That was a good 2007. And Rock Band, I think, actually. Yeah. I mean, we got the drums out for the first time. It was a big year. Big year.
Got very good on expert mode.
But just like I imagine most startups, we kind of both just did whatever needed to be done. There wasn't a whole lot of role definition at all. And, which I think, characteristically is a hallmark of what you need to just, it's like that's the startup world is, right? You just do what you got to do to stay alive and to get the next customer and to keep the software functioning. And I think Adam was very kind to take some of the more challenging, or at least what I would consider more challenging work on the business side of things, and let me spend more time coding. Of course, these days he's the CTO, so he's making up on that. maybe a little. I don't know.
Yeah, I lost the rock, paper, scissors on who had to go talk to people. So I did all the sales and marketing and
Until you dumped it
contract
on
work
me.
until we found a new sucker.
Okay, so you got really good at Rock Band, and then, picked yourself up off the mat and started building again. As the company grew and you had 10 employees, 20 employees, raising a little bit of money, at what point did you join?
Yeah, so I was in graduate school, and Wiley and I were working on another company, and then we all kind of started working on this, and that was after the first chunk of client partners came on in Washington. We were looking at expanding to a second state, and Wiley had gone full-time. Adam was still working somewhere else. So Wiley came full-time in 2010, Adam 2 years later in 2012, me full-time 2 years later in 2014, but I started working on it in 2010. And I don't know, so we bootstrapped. I think that was different, although it's not different for Utah, right? The Utah tech scene, one of the hallmark attributes is that there's just a tremendous amount of bootstrapping. So we were the same way. So we were, double-digit millions of revenue, growing 100% a year before we raised our first capital. I think maybe we had 5 or 6 people when I came full-time, and we still spent another couple of years growing and slowly adding. I don't think we brought a salesperson on until Gabe joined us in 2016.
15 or 16, yeah.
2015 or 16. And then we raised capital in 2017, and we did a $50 million Series A. So it's kind of a big first-time capital raise, going from nothing. And then the whole game changed, actually. Like, the roles changed, like the general, everybody wears every hat. That all went out the window.
So on the journey with that game changing, at that point you've got a board and you've got other people interested and you've got people watching, right? Both folks that are encouraging and then probably some detractors and everything in between. As you grew up and matured, both in age and then as being founders and leaders of this company, what were a couple of key things that you did in that timeline that enabled you to keep growing?
Well, maybe just one comment on that question. We were unbelievably fortunate, I think, in the folks that joined us from a capital and perspective. I couldn't name a single detractor. Could you?
They were unbelievable.
They were just.
I mean, we should give a shout out.
Yeah.
Right. So our round was led by Kleiner Perkins, right? Noah Knopf, now Bond Capital. We had Bessemer Venture Partners, Maverick. Locally, we had Epic. We had Peterson Partners. We had several leading folks within healthcare. So Providence St. Joseph Health, Intermountain Ventures, Kaiser Permanente. So 2 of the 3 leading health systems in the country are integrated health systems. 3M Health Information Systems, local company, right, joined California Healthcare Foundation. So we went from nothing to, I think, 10 institutional investors in a pretty, warm raise, and every single one of them was lockstep supportive in growing the business.
Yeah, I think Adam and you were gonna
say it led to a fairly
probably on
large
the
board
same
meeting, but
Well, I think Adam and I had always really resisted any kind of engagement with venture capital, just because you hear the stories, and I think we even here in Utah, we have a history of some unpleasant venture capital history, and so we carried kind of that chip on our shoulder for a long time, and certainly if Chris hadn't joined us, I don't think we ever would have raised, and Noah and Steve. And Ambar and all the guys just completely changed my view on venture capital. They were always supportive. They never got in our way. The decisions were always ours to make. They were happy to provide input and a voice, and often a very intelligent voice.
They disagreed with us.
Yeah, really, really good, conversation. But at the end of the day, they would always be like, "Guys, this is your thing. Do your thing," and that was just such a stark difference to me, and I don't know what accounts for it. I don't know if it's because of who those particular investors were, or if
we were pretty choosy.
We were pretty choosy. Yeah, I mean Chris and the team went through. I think we started with more than 100
of term sheets.
Yeah,
for that
yeah,
round.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's good to be in that position, kind of a warm round, as you mentioned, that you're kind of the bells of the ball for that Series A.
I mean, can't you tell? Like, these beautiful mugs, like, clearly. No.
Yeah, from a business perspective.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks for the clarification.
So I've gotten to know you guys over the years, and we always have fun chats. Like, before we pressed record on this, we were having a fun chat about Hawaii and some other fun stuff. How do you guys kind of transition and put on different hats when you've got to interact with the board and raise money and get acquired versus kind of your personalities, which are fun and lighthearted as you lead the team? So there's a time for fun, humor, and then there's a time for like rolling up the sleeves. How do you guys individually do that?
You should hit that. You've got. Adam has lots of thoughts on this topic.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I think you do.
Well, I like to think that I'm the fun, humorous side, and I look to Chris as a counterpart for the roll up your sleeves, do the business side. But I think the reality is, I think we found a good balance of like being ourselves when we work. I think that's really important, right? Because if you're put on a different set of shoes, to go do different things, it can be a little confusing, I think, to yourself and to the company. So even through the process we went through on the acquisition, it was great because it was mostly us three and a few supporting folks at Collective running the process, and we got to meet with Point Click Care's management team pretty early on, and none of us are afraid of working hard, and I think that's really the thing. It's just like this idea of having fun or doing the business, I don't think there's a real distinction for us. It's just go do the thing and do it well and work hard and have fun doing it. And I think that's, I don't know, you guys keep me honest, I think that's always been a thing that kind of united us as we've tackled problems. And even the last piece with the acquisition, it was a lot of work, and Chris can go into some more details there, but I don't even think through that process it was never really felt like being any different than any other problem we had to go figure out or solve. So
To appreciate what Adam's saying, though, you have to have the context, right? Like, Wiley and I were best friends starting when we were, like 3 or 4? And then, Adam and I became friends in Chuck Slaughter's geometry class out in the portables on the football field.
10th grade.
In Boise High School in 10th grade. And then we all roomed together, and we've all been thick as thieves, through college and beyond. And, we wrote an article about this, right, for Silicon Slopes magazine, and everybody says, like, don't go into business with your friends. Yeah. And we've certainly stepped in it more than once and had to figure out, okay, well, what's the friendship side and what's the work side? And, if somebody's not pulling their weight, or somebody, that doesn't really happen, but if somebody, kind of makes a mistake or we disagree, like, how do you manage that and still go home friends at the end of the day? And it's not like we haven't fought like cats or dogs once or twice, but like, I remember one time, this is like maybe 18 months ago, I think I felt really overwhelmed. There was just a lot going on, and I was feeling tons of pressure. We had been having, so actually this is probably 2018. We were having kind of a tough year. Business was still growing a bunch, but just a lot of stuff was breaking because we were growing. And Wiley was like, dude, let's take a day. And so cleared our calendars, middle of work week, and we went and played Xbox and like ate pizza and hung out at Wiley's house.
Executive leadership meeting.
Yeah, executive leadership retreat. And it was like, it was just us being friends again. And it was awesome, and it totally energized me and recharged me. And my good friends knew that I needed that and looked out for me. And you don't get that in a normal environment. And so we figured out over time how you do that, right? We're in a board meeting just the same. We different roles again, right? I'm sitting as chairman of the board. We've got our investors there. They've put a lot of money in. They want to put a lot more money in. Now we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And so, kind of screwing around doesn't really cut it anymore because the stakes are high, and it never really cut it because our business literally is a function of life or death. Like, we can track overdose deaths and overdose deaths that are avoided, and, other challenges related to the opioid epidemic, or, challenges with, maternal mortality. And so there's always been an air of seriousness in the business by very nature of the work that we do.
Yeah, and I think you guys have a unique story in that you have been friends for so long, and it's easier in some aspects, harder in others, and I think it's great. That's a good story of going and playing Xbox for a day, and because it is one thing to, these people know you really, really well. They can pick up on the body language. And if you say a word differently, something's off with him. So has there ever been an instance, like where kids will ask their dad for something, he says no, they ask their mom for something? Was there ever like employees that were like, all right, I gotta know from Wiley, I'm gonna go ask Adam?
Wiley was always the favorite parent.
It's because I'm the most attractive one.
Wiley would just disregard whatever the business case was, and somebody's like, I want to do this, or some salesperson says, I want to sell this, and we're like, no, that's not on the strategic roadmap, whatever. And then Wiley's already like hacking code together to like make the thing happen. So
Our product
he
people
might be the
don't
favorite
always.
parent.
They don't always love me.
So you got to play that with the team as you grow.
I honestly, though, I think one of the biggest challenges is always staffing, because like Chris has a financial background, and that has been a huge benefit to us in a lot of different ways. And it is like he worked all of our term sheets and all of our diligence documents for the acquisition and the contracts for the acquisition. And like Adam and I can have complete trust in him that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Like, we know it. When Adam and I have to come ask for new hires from Chris, like beg for new hires from Chris, that's when it gets sticky, because like we feel like we need resources, and Chris has got his eye on the number, and I'm really grateful that somebody's got their eye on the number, right? But we're kind of like in a lot of ways opposed on that, right? Because Adam's trying to build his dev team, which produces the product, and Chris is trying to make sure that we don't overextend, so that we've got our 3 years of runway on the capital that we raised, and we're not going to go over. Like, so there's always a bit of healthy tension and push and pull, and sometimes that sort of thing is like less so like when an employee comes to ask for something from one or the other. I feel like generally we're pretty aligned, like in our vision and our roadmap. It's more like when we've got different interests in the business, and those interests come out in these sorts of discussions that you have to have. So
we had this Slack channel called the WAC, which is the Wiley, Adam, Chris, and we would convene meetings of the WAC, and sometimes urgently. But we learned a few things early on. One, the parents shouldn't fight in front of the kids, and so we need to be aligned. And we might disagree, but once we make a decision, the three of us, we're going to go out and present a united front. I think we did a pretty good job of that, and work really hard not to undermine one another. Two, and this took a little while longer to learn, but like true division of roles and responsibilities, and then getting out of the other person's swim lane and trusting. So it's like, great, if I've got sales or finance, then those guys trust me. I've got it, right? And if Wiley's got security and he's blocking something, which happened more than once, that we want to go build or do, I trust him that like we shouldn't go do that because he's expert in it, and we're gonna have to refactor whatever strategic roadmap I thought was gonna be whiz bang awesome. And Adam's got product with other leaders in our business, and when they say it's gonna take XYZ to build, doesn't matter if I want it tomorrow. Like, I've got to trust that's what it's gonna be, and he's putting the best architecture and the best teams, everything forward. And I think we got to that place in a way that there's mutual respect but true, swim lanes.
Yeah, good insights there and great stories. So we were at the RSL game last fall, and you showed up, and we were having a fun time. Still had to wear masks, but we were eating. And I could tell something was on your mind. I said, what's going on? What's the latest? And you mentioned that there was something kind of big happening, and you were clearly in deliberation. So let's talk about the acquisition. How did it work for you guys? Like at some point somebody has to ping someone and say, hey, you guys down? Whether it's a banker or, the other founding company. I'd be interested in how it works, how it worked for you guys, and some of the kind of the high notes and low notes, if there were any, on how the whole thing worked.
Yeah, we can talk about this forever. I walked out of that soccer game with you to the parking lot and signed a term sheet to sell the business 20 minutes later in the parking lot at 10:30 at night that we'd been negotiating that day. And it was bittersweet, right? That was full of emotion, and it was a hard decision. And we had, guys, like tens of hours of discussion about this. So I think deals come about for a variety of reasons, and we've all done, I think, or many of us have done a bunch over time. Sometimes you decide you want to sell the company, and so you decide as a board to explore strategic options, which is the euphemistic code for we should sell the company. And you hire a bank, maybe you do a bake-off, and then you build a book and you put it out and you sell the business. Those are often not the best way to do it. I don't think we were proactively looking to sell the business. In fact, I know we weren't. 2020 was our best year ever. We just finished our best quarter ever. Things have been humming. And 2020, in spite of massive dislocative events with COVID that gave us a real run for our money in end of Q1 and Q2. And yet we have an incredible team, an incredible leadership team, and people dug in and pivoted, and it was great. So I remember being out mowing my lawn, and this was September or August maybe, and getting a phone call about this, and we had 5 strategic companies call within a 10-day period asking to talk about acquisition. And so we knew something was in the water. We hadn't hired a bank, we weren't looking to do anything. And we knew 4 of the 5 companies really well and had different views on each. But I remember calling the guys, same thing, sitting in my front yard and just saying, hey, we should talk about this. Clearly something's going on, valuations are high, people seem hungry. It turns out one of our competitors had just been acquired. And so there was a scarcity factor in the market. People were looking to see what else there was they could potentially buy. And then we started talking to Point Click Care, and this is a company we've worked with for years as a partner, and have a tremendous amount of respect for. So, kind of same deal, founder-led company, a couple of brothers out of Mississauga, Ontario, and the boonies. They're not even from Mississauga, but out in the boonies in Ontario, Canada. Same thing, 3, basically brothers for all intents and purposes. Still founder-controlled, founder-led, highly mission-oriented. Very, very aligned in values. There's a humility and just kind of collaborative spirit in the culture, and we knew we had that already because we've been working with them for years. And so when that conversation naturally and pretty organically evolved into hey, should we explore a strategic partnership, i.e. code for should we merge? That felt pretty natural. I knew them really well. Adam and Wiley didn't know them as well. And so, I don't know if you want to talk about that, because this mattered a lot. You've got 3 stakeholders, right? You've got shareholders, you have your employees, and you have your customers. Yeah. And it is not all about maximizing shareholder value. You need to look for all 3, and you can really screw it up by over-indexing on one. And it was particularly important to us to make sure that we were maximizing all 3, because we wanted what we built to last.
Yeah. Speak to that. Obviously, trust is important now, with something, big numbers, lots of, the blood has met the water, as you mentioned, and obviously things are occurring. So you as the co-founders, what were your thoughts at this point?
I think a couple things. So one, we had solicitations for the last several years. I feel like approaching Q4, some solicitations come along the lines at varying levels of sincerity or, interest. And I don't think none of those ever really made sense. But this last time around, a lot of things started to line up, at least for me, kind of from how are we going to continue to grow our mission, like what we're trying to accomplish, how are we going to facilitate the growth of the business as well. Chris is right. We didn't know the leadership of the Point Click Care team, but we got to know them. And I think that was, for me personally, a very big piece of it, right? To see individuals that cared about the company and a mission as much as we did was pretty important, because we've spent most of our best years laboring diligently to build this company. And so finding a place where not only from a business perspective it made a lot of sense to grow and do some things that I don't think could do by ourselves. That was one key thing. Is this going to help us do more together than we could just do by ourselves? But also to have that kind of culture, mission aspect. It's not 100% the same, but directionally it's very close. I feel that the company is very much aligned with the things that we care about. And so that was really important. And I think that helped kind of build the path to getting to a place where we could feel, for me, that I could feel comfortable saying, yes, I think this is the next right step. This is what the evolution ought to look like.
Now, just to kind of underscore and bold something that Adam said, and maybe just put it in a little different light. We have, at Collective Medical, we have been fortunate to have unbelievable people at our company. I don't know how we got most of them or why they wanted to come work with us, but just intelligent, thoughtful,
We
hardworking.
didn't want to tell you it wasn't because of you,
It-
but just kidding.
They-
It was all Wiley.
They were I don't know what they were thinking, but I hope they aligned with our mission. I hope they saw the value in what the company does, in terms of improving patient care, in terms of helping the individual. But that the point is that we have Adam and Chris and I have been the beneficiaries of sacrifice and hard work. On our behalf or on behalf of the company, from our employees, they've given us ideas and output and code and, in all of their respective areas, they've been fantastic. And it seems there was more than one suitor who was not interested in keeping many of those people.
One offered a lot more money,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
and they were going to do an immediate layoff.
And
We were going to make a lot more money.
I just don't know how you can sit and say I've benefited so much from these people and then just turn around and undermine them. So anyways, the point, to get to the point, Point Click Care wants to continue the company mission, to grow the company mission, to grow the company, to grow our footprint. Since the acquisition, we've hired 65 or 70 people.
Almost 100 in the last 4 months.
Yeah, almost 100, and we've got still another 30 open recs or something like that.
100, over 100.
Okay, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Demand is high.
The point is that this is a growth acquisition for both companies, and we've seen them adopt parts of our mission, and we've adopted parts of theirs. Now, it hasn't been without its friction, there's always been there's challenge and change, but I think we felt like, bar none, this particular acquirer was going to do right by our employees, and that was to me that was really important.
Yeah. So $650 million was the acquisition price, correct?
In the ish.
Ish.
We never actually
Good enough.
disclosed.
I'm just going off
So-
of what the World Wide Web says. Ish. So after all the back and forth, are bankers involved at this point? Was it just handled in-house? How long did it ultimately take for you guys to feel comfortable and for you to sign the term sheet in the RSL parking lot?
Yeah, so it had been, it was less than 2 weeks from the time we had a meeting where we all met until we had the basic terms hammered out, and we signed that, and that agreed to 60 days to close the transaction.
Wow.
We had some bankers advising at that point, not engaged in an aggressively formal capacity, but providing some advice, and they had some as well. And then obviously armies of attorneys and accountants and other advisors. And frankly, a lot of the 60 days that it took from the time that we sat in that parking lot until closing the transaction in the year was just related to regulatory. We're pretty large, they're very large, and and so we had to do some antitrust filings, and it's a Canadian company acquiring a U.S. company, so we had CFIUS filings, and it has to go to Homeland Security and Department of Justice and Commerce Department, a whole bunch of others have to sign off on the transaction, so that was a lot of the work. But otherwise, it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pretty quick process.
And they didn't care that you guys aren't hockey players?
That caused some issues with some of the background checks.
Yeah, beauty.
Cultural melting pot.
Right, eh?
Take off, hoser. All right, so you've mentioned, I think maybe all three of you at some point, like bittersweet, right? It's not like selling a car and you watch it drive off, or even a house that you'll never see again. Like, you guys are still involved, right?
Very much so.
And growing the company. Wiley thinks there's 40 job openings, but there's actually 100.
In
so it's
fairness,
clearly-
I was on the careers page last night talking to somebody, and there's like 40 listings on there. So I'm just saying.
We're metering them.
metered. Anyway, so with an acquisition, like there's all sorts of routes the founders and CEOs could go. They can ride off into the sunset. They can stay forever. What are your guys' kind of initial thoughts as to how you'd like to continue with the company?
Oh yeah, I mean we're around to stay. We will make sure that this company is in good hands and is sailing right. And I don't think any of us. The acquisition itself has not changed our personal missions. Like we want to make healthcare better for people, and not just patients either, for providers and for insurers and the whole ecosystem. I mean, it's no secret that healthcare is so messed up. And we're a small piece of the puzzle, but I think a really important one, and nothing about that has changed.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, healthcare is a $3.5 trillion albatross around our economy's neck that's negative net productivity inducing. I mean, think about that. That's ridiculous. That far outpaces GDP in terms of growth. And so, you take that from an economic perspective, or you take it from a personal perspective, and many of us have had kind of intimately personal experiences, right? Like nobody cares about healthcare, but everybody cares about health. It's like the most personal thing to us. And so, it was Adam's mom, Patty, that kicked this whole thing off. And it became very personal. It was personal to her, it became personal to Adam and Wiley, and then to me. And it is personal to our team. And so, look, do I think that we're going to be here indefinitely forever? Probably not. I think we like to build things and create things. Do we have some earnout that's keeping us around? No. We could all quit yesterday. But we all gave a commitment to the acquiring company that we would be here as long as it takes, to Wiley's point, to ensure that this continues and thrives. We want it to thrive for them. More so, we want it to thrive for all of our customers who are providers caring for a third of the population of the country and growing very rapidly. This matters. And I think this is the whole point. We wanted to make sure we left it in a place that it would continue for decades. We weren't trying to build a fly-by-night thing. Yeah. And so I don't think any of us ever sat out and thought that this would be the scale that it is. And no one ever actually, I'm certain of this actually. I know you guys didn't start it and said we're going to get rich doing this. There are a ton of things you can make a whole lot more money on, much easier than the business we chose. Yeah. Fundamentally, full stop.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Getting all three of you is a big time commitment for you and the company, so we appreciate you doing that, and congrats on the success you enjoyed last year, and we look forward to all that you'll do in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you.